Hello and welcome to the Hard Stuff podcast. Today my guest is Linh Podetti. She's an entrepreneur, she's a podcaster with multiple podcasts, she's a philanthropist, she's an outsourcing expert and so much more. I love talking to Linh. She's an amazing storyteller, very charismatic, and she's a very inspiring person. If you are enjoying the show, please make sure to follow me on whatever audio platform you are listening to. Hope you enjoy the show. Thanks for listening. Linh Podetti, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. And it's a privilege to be in a beautiful Melbourne.
I had so much fun prepping for this interview and kind of going over all the things you've done. You're such an inspirational character. I just thought we'd get started by kind of diving into your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah. So I started my business in 2009, actually. It was a nail polish business. The reason why I started that is that I had no idea what to start. You know, when you have never been in a business world, you don't have any entrepreneurs in your family. You're just so limited in your thinking, you can't think of any opportunities. So There was the first opportunity that came at me. A friend of mine gave me some nail polish and I thought I could sell it and make $1 million if I could just make $1 from 1 million women, I would be successful. But I was so gullible, and that's probably why, I'm where I am, because I'm so naive that I just give things a go.
I think that's an important trait for entrepreneurs. I think if you know how hard it's going to be, you probably are never going to start.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you're oblivious to the consequences of life, you just go ahead. And so I learned a lot about e-commerce or building a product online, building a business online. I had to learn to outsource because I had limited funds, and I learned a lot about marketing. And so because of that business, it led me into starting a marketing agency, leveraging offshore staff. And then it led me into outsourcing, which is the company that I'm in now, Outsourcing Angel, where we provide people with remote staff from overseas. So that's kind of like the short story to my entrepreneurship journey.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, like for me, my business journey started as I'm a tradesman, and then so you kind of get good at something, you're like, I can turn this into the business. But it's an interesting perspective thinking about, how old were you at the time?
So I was about 27 at the time.
Okay.
I was a single mum.
Yep.
My child was quite small, and I was really determined to start an online business because, when you have a corporate job working 9 to 5, you could not be there for him. And I remember taking him to school, before care, after care, and I said, that's it. I really need to take the leap and start a business. And I didn't have any particular skill set. Like, for example, if someone is a graphic designer, then they naturally start graphic design business, or, whatever you're good at, you start. But I actually didn't think I was good at anything because the skill that I had is more of like a soft skill. Like, I'm a people person.
Yep.
It's one of those things that you can apply to any business, but it's not a particular business.
Yeah.
And so that's probably why I kind of struggled to think of a business idea. But I think the lesson I learned is that, whatever you start, you never know where that would lead you. If I didn't start the nail polish business, then I wouldn't have learnt the skills from there that when people said to me, so when I knew that I hated nail polish. I woke up more depressed than, when I had a corporate job. And so I knew I needed to do something. But instead of going back to a job, I'm like, okay, what else can I do? So I started like a meetup event where I would bring together other entrepreneurs who are just starting out like me. It was actually called Business Startup Zero Capital. I'm like, what if I just gather more people who don't have money like me, and we can help each other? And maybe I don't even have to be the one giving all the content. I could actually get some of the members with different skill set to go and speak. And so it was like a fortnightly event in Melbourne, actually, because I was originally from Melbourne. And that was when I started to build an audience. People started to go, okay, Linh, what do you do? And I was like, I run a nail polish business. I started learning a bit about life coaching and all that, but didn't really have anything to offer. And they're like, oh yeah, me too. I started a business and I don't know how to do this website. I don't know how to do this marketing. And I was just giving tips. And I didn't think that was worth anything. But when they said, okay, how do you do that? I go, oh, well, you don't do it yourself. You can go hire these people from overseas and, you upload a job and then you get them to apply. And they're like, well, how do you do that? Can you just do it for me? And then that was how I discovered that I had a talent from learning it from my first business to be able to start a marketing agency at first for several years before I decided to pivot into, let me just match you with the person.
So this was all back in 2009. I'd imagine with both the e-commerce and also the outsourcing, there wasn't anywhere near as much infrastructure for that kind of thing, as far as I'm aware anyway. So how did you kind of go about
Yeah, I mean, e-commerce back then, it was all about like WooCommerce, and there wasn't Shopify, I don't think, but there's still other platforms.
Yep.
And in terms of so the site that I used to use is called Odesk, but it's called Upwork now. And at the time there were still some other sites like Freelancer and a few others. It wasn't that it wasn't around, it's just not as many people know about it, and a lot of people were skeptical about it. Because it's true, if you don't know what you're doing in the outsourcing game, you would be finding duds like I did. And look, I didn't actually knew about this offshore as well. I first outsourced to Australian companies. I had a website built only to find out that they built it on a proprietary platform that after spending $3,000 or $4,000, I couldn't even do anything with it. They said, we need to do the changes for you. It's going to cost you $75 an hour moving forward.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why didn't you tell me that at the beginning? I was like, in a way, that's deceitful, like without knowing what you're doing, you can get taken advantage of. So with limited funds, I actually had to throw away the website and build it from scratch. And that's when I was searching and somehow stumbled across like cheaper people to be able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's so interesting. So my kind of experience with that was I had a few situations the same as you where I tried to outsource and it would just turn into this big expensive thing that cost me so much and I just didn't have the money. So I went the other direction. Instead of outsourcing, I just did everything myself, right? So, and it just turned into me being a tradesman, being a website development and all like doing all this stuff that I had no business doing and I wasn't that good at. So yeah, I've recently kind of started outsourcing myself, and the freedom that gives you is just unbelievable.
And the thing is, I think we all outsource some parts of our life. We outsource the cooking, we eat out, we source. I outsource cleaning. I mean, we outsource a lot of things that we're familiar with. But when it comes to online outsourcing services, people are like, it's weird, it's foreign, or I should try to do it myself. But it really comes down to the same thing. It's like, how much is your time worth? And can someone else do it better than you as well? Right?
100%.
The stress, the energy that it takes from you.
So I've spent my 12-month journey, I read, is it Who Not
How?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've gone from working ridiculous hours, and this was also part of my mentality, like I have to do everything because nobody can do it as good as me, which just fundamentally is just not true, right? And I've kind of, over all aspects of my business for the last 12 months, started outsourcing everything. And the level of freedom I have and the level of kind of how much my mental health is freed up from kind of going on that journey is just phenomenal.
Yeah, and I mean, the word outsourcing could also mean just who can you delegate it to? And that comes from, you start off with contractors, someone that you can just hire on demand. Then you want to get them, full part-time. Then you can upgrade to full-time. Even hiring a local person. Sometimes we struggle with delegating. So it's like, it's all about like being able to let go of control, knowing that someone else can do it. Maybe not better at the beginning, but even if it was 95%, but eventually, they'll get, better. And so sometimes people think of outsourcing very transactional. I always tell people, hire someone, try to have them working for you as long as possible, because the longer they work for you, the more they know you. It's like, whoever you're married to, if you first meet them, it's like they don't really know you, but the longer you are, they can almost, talk on your behalf, right?
Yeah,
they
I 100% agree. Yeah. I mean, for what we do as well, what I do is so niche, and getting somebody up to scratch is so, I guess, demanding that losing a staff member is it's such a hard negative experience I think you just got to get to the point where you got to get really good people and keep them happy. So
exactly. So I think whether you're outsourcing, you should treat it like you're hiring local staff to really get them to grow with you. Yeah.
So as far as my outsourcing journey, I've just hired my first VA, and she's fantastic, and it's really. I guess I wanted to touch base on my fears. Outsourcing overseas was always something other people do. And I had a deep fear of, I guess, how do you manage people? And also have this issue in my own business. I think it comes down to a lack of trust. But as far as managing remote teams, would you have any advice for anyone listening?
Yeah, that's what I do for a living.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our whole company is remote.
Yep.
And I think, what did you think of VA when you first started? When you heard the word VA, did you know what skill set they were doing, or what were limited thinking about that?
I mean, specifically the word VA.
Yeah, like when you first VA, did you even know what VA stand for?
I knew it stood for virtual assistant, and I kind of just thought it's overseas executive assistant.
Yeah. And then you thought that they were going to be working so close with you that you're wondering how are you going to, pass on the information
Correct.
and if they, you can lean on them. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I always tell people it doesn't matter. I mean, the good thing about after COVID is that people realize you can work from anywhere and you can get things done more efficiently. For me, I remember I wanted to start an online business. So when I started working remotely from home, it was my mission to build a remote business. Even when, like any business, you have client retention issues and you have certain things. And I had I guess a joint venture partner at the time, and he was like, maybe we should put everyone in the office and then we can control them and we can make sure they don't, we can control the quality. And I said, nah, I'd rather close this business than to make everyone go back to a corporate.
You're also trapping yourself. I mean, like right now, I have the luxury of being in South Bank. This is amazing. And I just spoke to my leadership team this morning and everything's fine.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly.
I had such a deep fear of not being in the office because the second I'm not eyes on, that everything's going to crash because nobody's going to do
exactly.
Their
Or
job.
don't tell me, when I was in a corporate job, I was surfing the internet half of my time, doing my work, enough that they're like, wow, you're so good. And I'm like, you don't even know that I've been surfing on the internet and still deliver. And that was why I decided to start my business. I'm like, just because I'm getting paid, but I'm not feeling challenged, I'm just a number in this corporate job. And even when I'm wasting half of my time, they still hire me and still think I'm amazing. So imagine if I work full on for myself and put 110% effort in. So anyway, remote became a thing for me. I wanted to have the flexibility and freedom for anyone that works with me. So even though our team now, we have maybe 5 or 6 Australian staff, they still work from home. And even when I first hired, more Australians as well, I thought that we're going to hang out more and we're going to meet up and collaborate. But I was like, oh my God, by the time we drive to each other and then we chit chat about how are things going, we're so unproductive. So I actually really prefer online. And so with online, obviously, all we have is a laptop. So what do we need? We need softwares, we need infrastructure in terms of how do we communicate, what are the protocols. So, without project management tool such as Asana, or we currently use Notion.
Just started using Notion. Yeah, it's good.
Yes. So you have a tool that can allow you to create tasks, assign it to the right person. You can even put the deadline in. And, with team members working different time zone, they can work on it when you're asleep. So it's really clear there. The office for us used to be Slack, but now it's Google Chats. So it's almost like a mimic of whatever you have in person, you just have to make sure you have it online. When people are starting out, you would probably tell them what time you work, how you should communicate, blah, blah, blah. Well, you should have that online as well. What time is my working hours? And the thing is, you need to actually explain for them to be more over communicating than under, just because you're online, they might be working, but they need to tell you that they're working. So it's not just, hi, good morning, I'm here, and then disappear for the whole time. We always encourage them to go, remember, we don't know what you're really doing. So try to be as more communicative. So we try to communicate as much as possible. So for example, before work, we get everyone to fill out with Google Chats, you can do automations where it pops up and go. So we actually have an automation that says, what are you grateful for today? And what are the 3 impactful tasks that you're going to work on? And even though we've got like 20 admin team, meaning the team that works internally, we have about 80 virtual staff that work for clients. Who I manage is usually the main staff. And everyone would enter it in and say, I'm grateful that I spent quality time with my husband. Whatever else that's happening in their personal life, and then they share the impactful tasks. So everyone in other departments can also see that as well.
Okay.
Right?
So this is on the Google
Chats, but you can use that on Slack. So every tool has an automation integration, all right? Whether it's Zapier or Make, it integrates there. So one thing that I've learned in the last few years is not just about getting people to do more work for you to to scale your business. It's like, how can you softwares and tools automate things so even a VA would have better time working for you. Back then I wasn't very aware with the whole software thing. So just because I had a cheaper labor, I used to get him to, every time I email, I would CC him so he could copy and paste the messages onto the CRM system. And it was years later that when I hired someone that knew more than me, said, why are you doing that? You can just integrate it and every email would just go straight in there. And so that's why when we work with clients, we're always asking them, what tools are you using? How are you using it? surprisingly, a lot of people still using Excel,
Yeah.
and the softwares aren't talking to each other. So if you can do a bit of that, and then getting your team to communicate in a structured way. So at the end of the day, when someone's new to working with you as well, you want them to also go, what did I achieve? What are some of my challenges? And so you want to kind of keep a pulse on how they're going and what's happening. And obviously having more one-on-one coaching calls with them to understand how well they went, and then giving them feedback as much as possible at the beginning. But later on, they should start to be working like clockwork later.
Yeah, 100%.
One of the other cool thing that I get the team to do is I have a Notion spreadsheet. It has everyone's name on there. And I actually, because I love reflection. Personally, I reflect daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. Because when you reflect, it allows you to really think, what did I actually achieve? And what problems did I face? What kind of was the theme for this month? Or how am I going to make a better intention next month? Even though you think it's taking time away, it's actually so good, because sometimes depression and anxiety comes because you just feel like, I'm not getting there. You're so focused on the goal that is so far away. But when you start to write it down, you're like, oh my God, I did so much.
You're making steps.
Progress, right? And so I was like, okay, I love doing this. I've been doing it for years. I need my team members to do this. So it's compulsory, and they lose points if they don't fill out the weekly report where it says, rating 1 to 5, why, what did you achieve? What are you planning to do? What did you learn last week? What's your challenge? What's your intention? I literally duplicated everything I wanted to do. And I hold them accountable. When they're missing the column of challenge, I'm like, really? There's no challenge?
Yeah.
Like, think, because if you don't think, you're just going to go by day and really not fixing the things that's really happening. You're just going with the flow. And it's also about, how do you get your team members to get to know each other, to really almost get inside the heads of each other, so that we can work well as a team.
Yeah, fantastic. So you mentioned you were a single mother at the time. I think it's a very difficult situation. I think a lot of people will kind of put their hands up and say, this is too hard to deal with. How did you kind of find the motivation to be able to move forward?
Well, I think my style is just jump in and then go, I didn't realize it's hard.
Yeah.
So, look, I grew up with a quite dysfunctional upbringing. My parents forced me to work at the age of 10. I was sewing from home till I was like teenager. It was forced work, as in I had to go to school, come home and sew for them, because they had a sewing business at home. And, typical kind of self-employed, they don't have any work-life balance. It was like 7 a.m. wake up, work till 12. The longer you work, the more they think they were going to make, because you get paid for what you kind of produce. Weekends, it was like every other day. There was no weekend. And then so I really felt that I was unloved. I felt, imagine being a child and all that pressure and anxiety of like endless work. I still have nightmares till this day. I have a nightmare that I'm still sewing and I wake up like panicking.
Oh my God.
And so I was resisting my parents. I'm like, this is not right. Like, I need my life. And so that's when we started to create this big tension with my parents. We're fighting all the time. I ended up running away and ended up choosing the wrong path. I mean, I dated lots of people that were not good for me, but I didn't know any better, because I was almost so gullible, and I was also acting out. It was almost like someone who's hurt just wants to rebel and just don't care, And so I end up not really listening to any of the things my parents said. So some of the things they said, I don't agree, but some of the things they said, which is, hey, I don't think this person is good for you, I didn't care, because I no longer trust their advice. So I ended up I dated someone, and then when we said we're going to have a kid, I'm like, yeah, why not? Let's just have a kid. And I told my parents, I said, guess what? I'm pregnant. Like, I was, it wasn't that we were friendly. And they're like, you're having a baby? Like, as in, no, you should not have a baby. I said, it's not that hard. I just was very oblivious. I just thought, it's a baby. You just have it. They're cute. That's the only thing that I could think of. And so when I had a child, I was like, oh my God, this is actually one of the only decision where you kind of have to live with it for years. Sometimes you could make a decision to, drink alcohol or get drunk. It kind of happens once. This is kind of forever.
Yeah.
And so the learning curve for me was just that I put myself in there and I had no idea what to expect. So I quickly had to learn to time manage. I didn't want to disappoint myself, because I felt like I failed. Like I had a lot of pride where I was like, Mom, I'm going to prove to you that I can have a baby and the guy that I'm dating is going to be amazing to me. And when it didn't work out, I was like, and they were telling me like, I don't want you to be this single mum who's going to be on Centrelink and, you know, have no career because you're just stuck being a mother. So I decided that no, like I've already failed once. I'm not going to fail again. And so I put myself through uni and I only took 6 months off. So I was like kind of like pregnant at uni. Imagine this 19-year-old and then kind of like took a few semesters off to have a baby and then came back. And then I graduated with a distinction in international business. And so one of the things that I learned early on is that you never know what you're capable of unless your back is against the wall. When my family also disowned me because they were so angry and so embarrassed. Being Asian, they were like, you've embarrassed us. Like, you know, it wasn't about, are you okay? How are you going to handle it? It was like, get out of here. You're embarrassing us. And what are people going to say about you? And so when you realize that you can't depend on anyone but yourself, then you just had to get out. I was suicidal at the time as well, because when you don't have parents, your ex or your partner at the time was abusive. So we had, we have incidents where he's physically abused me. And I remember telling luckily I had beautiful kind of, the guy's parents were nice and supportive and called my parents and said, hey, your daughter really needs help. And she, she's even thinking about suiciding. My parents said, she got herself there, she can get herself out. And They hung up. And it's like you just have all these thoughts in your mind about like, it's easier if you go. But then the blessing is that because I have a child here, who's going to take care of him? And so I kind of had to, stick around and overcome it. And so I think I was just focusing on day by day, trying to finish my uni, got a job. And when my son was I can't remember, 5-6 years old or something like that, and I remember going to a job. I turned around to my son, I said, son, one day we are going to be able to travel around the world and mummy's going to start her own business and I'm going to make you so proud. I think one thing that got me through everything is I've always been a dreamer. I've always visualized and imagined, because when you don't really have anything in your reality, the only thing is you can go into your headspace and just imagine. And so, I just learnt to time manage. And
that's such an inspirational story. And I think so many entrepreneurs have a similar kind of story about kind of the school of hard knocks, right? So I've similar in a way where I think my parents both had, I feel like I did grow up in a kind of household that lacked love. And it's because my parents had a hard childhood themselves, right? So I don't blame them for that, but that led me to be quite an angry young man.
I was so angry too.
I was so angry and I didn't listen to anybody. And just that led to just so much, so many issues, like so much alcohol abuse, drug abuse. I have a similar situation where when I was 20, I got somebody pregnant from a one-night stand. Absolutely. Yeah, and like everything's fantastic now, and we've managed to make it work. But
so you end up having a baby then?
Yeah, absolutely. That's my oldest son, Cooper. Yeah. So he's 13 now. So everything ended well, and we've got a good relationship, and we managed that well. But at the time, the same. I mean, my mental health went down, and I was just so angry at the world. And I think it took me to kind of hit that rock bottom to kind of rise up and try to change the world. And I think a lot of my motivation was to kind of prove to the world that I can do this, that I am capable, that I am worthy. And now I'm at the point where I've kind of, reached a level of success. And don't get me wrong, I'm not, up here or anything, but I've reached a level of success that I never thought I'd reach. And I'm kind of looking at the next stage of my life and where I want to go.
That's right. And it took me longer than just that story. Like I end up, after, having a baby and I still dated and made lots of bad choices. It wasn't until I was just around the time, 2009, 2010, when I first started my business, was the first time I looked at myself and realized that I had a problem, because I just came out of another different relationship, which was also abusive. And for the first time I said, oh my God, maybe I was a common denominator, maybe I was the one that had no idea who I am. I could not be alone. I was always needing a relationship. And let's work on myself. And, I cried out to God, and I wasn't even religious at the time. And that's when I felt as if I hit my rock bottom. And I feel like there's a pattern in life I've noticed is that until the day you really hit your rock bottom and you surrender and you're like, no, it takes more than me. It's like I have to realize that you have to humble yourself to the point that I can't do this on my own. I need help. And somehow God or the universe hears that. And then not that he comes down from the sky and goes, here, I'll save you. It's that there's a shift in the way you see things. And then all of a sudden I got introduced to Oprah's gratitude practice, and I started writing my gratitude. I found a life coaching course. I learned it because I thought maybe I could be a life coach and make money, only to realize that I need to fix my life before I go to coach someone else. So I learned a lot for that. But that's when I discovered Tony Robbins, did so much personal development, and I'm still continuing on that journey now. But during that time that I started working on myself was when everything shifted. I knew who I wanted to date next, and then I got married in 8 months after I kind of had my rock bottom. I would call that more rock bottom than the rock bottom of having a child, because when you have a child and you still think you can do it, and you still think that after I date him, I'll date someone else, and it's all you think you know everything. But it's only until rock bottom is when like you literally think like I can't help myself, was when I feel my life really shifted. Because even the suicidal thing, I felt like, all right, I won't suicide anymore. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. So I was still the fixer. Whereas when I surrendered to God to go, I can't do this, help, it's worked out. And I think that's really helped me to develop a new philosophy in life, where it's like, you don't have to control everything, Lynn. The more you surrender, the more things will come, and the more you can stop trying to have things work in your timing. You got to wait for God's timing, right? And then in 4 or 5 years ago, I discovered Christianity, and I kind of I delved into that side of thing. And so it's really made me a lot more happier. And the person you see now with this work-life balance and happy, truly happy, is because of my faith.
That's awesome. So how do you think of kind of those hard times now? I mean, because in some ways I reflect back, and a lot of those hard times have kind of built who I am today. Yeah.
So the other thing that I learned in my Christian faith is that God cares more about your character than your comfort. So everything we're put in this earth temporarily to actually build ourselves. And the only way that we build our character is through going challenges. People like us, we kind of put ourselves in bad situations in the past. So we had to go through challenges and learn. I've seen friends who grew up avoiding all the challenges, did all the right things, said yes to their parents, and never, done anything bad. They still face challenges later on. So we'll all eventually face challenges, whether that challenge came in the form of they couldn't get pregnant, or they end up divorcing later on, even after dating someone for a really long time. They go through, separation. And so I'm like, you know what? None of us on this earth can avoid challenges. Correct. We either do it earlier and put ourselves in there, or we do it later. But so the beauty thing is, once you've done it and you learnt from it, knock on wood, I have not faced any major challenges that I'm that's unbearable anymore.
Yeah, well, challenges lead to growth, and I think going through that in an earlier kind of stage of your life means that you can start that growth trajectory and mindset and all of that stuff a lot earlier. So.
Yeah, and maybe it's not that I don't have any more challenges. It's just that I embraced it now. Even in business, it never gets easier. I was talking to a friend the other day because he's starting out, and he was stressing out about like, how am I going to make money and this and that. And I said, that will always be a problem. So welcome. I'm doing well. You just have a, more.
You'll be able to deal with it better.
That's it. You just know from the past history that you've overcome it. You'll be able to overcome it again. And you kind of start to enjoy the journey a bit more, because like, who can I become because of all this?
Yeah. Something that else that inspired me when I was kind of doing a bit of prep for the episode is the social impact side. And that's something I'm looking to make a shift in my own business, because my business personally has always just been about, me. I want to be rich. I want to make money. And as I can feel that as I grow kind of going away, and I'm looking into the next stage of my life, that's something that I'm very interested in. So talk about the journey of, how you made the decision to...
So look, at first I started the business because I wanted to be there for my son. It wasn't this online opportunity. And I also assumed the people I was working with in the Philippines or elsewhere, because I was born in Vietnam, so I knew what life was like in Vietnam. But to be honest, I was very oblivious. I was just imagining them all in a high-rise building and didn't think too much. I knew they were making less money than they would be able to over here, but I was not that connected to them. But it wasn't until I went to the Philippines and I saw the country with my own eyes, seeing that the staff, even though I'm paying him way more than he would normally get paid over there, and even in similar jobs, he was actually splitting his income with his parents, his sick relative or whatever else, because that's just what the culture is like in Asia. And he also lived in provinces where he didn't even have hot water. And I was like, oh my God, wow. And I said, and then the infrastructure in the Philippines was so bad that it takes 3 hours to get to work and 3 hours back. And I'm like, they are all mums and dads who can't even be there for their child because of work, because of trying to make a living. And so that was when I felt really connected to the business itself. I'm like, my business is actually making a change. It's taking away the need to travel, the pollution. People are getting to be there with their family and earning a better living. And so that was something that I fell in love with. But then along the way, early on, actually, I think it was 2013, one of my staff member, the one that I said had no cold water, and I stayed at his house, he actually had a cousin who was a gangster, bad boy who turned good. He also discovered Jesus and found his faith, and he started to volunteer and help people around the Philippines. But because he's just a volunteer, he doesn't really have resources to buy them anything. And so we just started off as just donating $100, $200 here and there. But then we just consistently do that. And then so over the years, we just continue to increase what we can give to them. And then the good thing about partnering with these volunteers is that they know what's going on in certain places. So typhoon might come, or there's some sort of issues there. They were like, hey, can we please use this fund for this? And we're like, perfect. And because they're not an organization such as like maybe World Vision, whatever else, who's a proper non-profit, which whatever money you give, it doesn't necessarily go directly because they have a business to run.
Yes.
You've got to pay the
Admin,
staff and all that stuff, and you never know how it's run. Whereas every dollar I give them, I can literally see it goes, like we're building houses, we're like building solar panels, we're digging holes and making water. And then so sometime when we're over in the Philippines, we'll go and so the niche that he covers is actually people living in the high mountains where it's inaccessible to most government helpers because the only way to get up is climb. The one time that I came up there, it took me 4 hours to climb, and we thought we were going to die. Yeah. There was no way down, and I'm talking about, it's not like it's a path where you can walk on the walking path. Mm-hmm. It's literally raw as anything, And we ran out of water. We had to start drinking water from the ground. And so these are the people that live up there. They're, I guess, the indigenous of the Philippines. They don't, the kids have never had a bath. They only bath in the river. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's all of that really helped me to feel really connected. So we're not a charity, we're still a business, but we run it like a non-profit. We kind of do always donate money to charity. We say that we donate 10% of profit to charity, but even if we make business decisions to reinvest in the business, we still make sure we allocate money to the business, to the charity, because that's the reason why a lot of our staff members want to work with us. They're like, you're so different. You're not here just for making money. Mm-hmm. You're here and you're making me feel like I have a purpose. I'm not just a VA or I'm not just a staff member. By me working, we're all part of a bigger mission. So I think for you, it's about finding something closer to your heart, not just like, let's just do, I don't know, like whatever's happening because of someone else's course. Yeah. It's like finding something that's more connected to yourself.
And that's kind of what I've been trying to figure out. I'm looking a lot into kind of mental health and stuff like that, and whether I can somehow connect with the institution around that. So.
Yeah, definitely. And I think once you embed it into the business, I feel like everyone around you would benefit from it because you feel good that you're part of something bigger than just money. Because money, it's just you you think when you make money, you'll be so happy forever, but it's literally so temporary.
That's
and then the
exactly-
goal keeps moving.
That's exactly
Yeah.
kind of the space that I'm in right now. You know, you find a bit of money and you go, well, this isn't all it cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you're also saying that, yeah, you're in it and you're helping people, but it's also benefited your business as well by staff morale and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. I wanted to shift a bit to your podcast, just out of personal interest.
Yeah.
And so you do a couple of podcasts now?
Yeah, so I didn't originally start podcasting typically like everyone else, where you have a podcast show and you just started doing podcasts. I had a YouTube channel first.
Yeah.
And so I was making content, teaching people how to start a business or start an outsourcing business. And then I would then also have some episodes where I interview people and, you know, put them on my YouTube channel. And so, yeah, it was called the Kind Boss Podcast, actually, because I'm like, I only want to talk to employers or business owners that were kind, you know, that was real, like good people. And so, yeah, if you're here because you're kind, you know.
I like that.
But yeah, and it was just over Zoom. And at first I was nervous because even though you're doing the interviewing and you don't have to do much answers, but you're just like, what if I screw up, you know? And what if I forget what question it is? And so like anything, sometimes people look at me and they're like, oh yeah, you're made for it because you're just brave and you're confident. No, I was shy. When I was growing up, you know, the teacher was complaining that she's so shy, she needs to put her hands up, you know, at the teacher interview, and I was so frustrated with myself. I knew I could do it, but I could never do it. And so it was kind of my mission from high school to like overcome my shyness. And so everything I did was just to overcome it. Not that I was confident and I started doing podcasts or videos, it was the other way around. And so podcasting, I would say I already started to do videos many years ago. I started doing videos back into, you know how I told you I met my husband and my life changed? Guess where he met me? On YouTube.
Yeah, okay. Podcast.
On YouTube.
Wow.
So YouTube, you know, it's video based, so people could see you, feel you, and feel like they know you, right? And so he only saw 2 videos that I made. That then he invited me for a business meeting. He wanted to build a website, and then the rest is history. We got married in 8 months. But that's the power of doing videos and doing content. But I stopped multiple times over the years. I was like, you know, like just, I don't know what to say. And, you know, if you shoot a video, but it takes you like 20 takes and then takes you 2 hours, it's really like, you know, not encouraging, right? But the beautiful thing about podcasts, which I encourage people, if you're starting out in content, is that podcasting allows you to transition slowly. You just have to turn up. Because the other thing when people are starting out is they're like, what do I look like? I don't like how I sound. I don't like how I look. It's just all these other things. And so it's about practicing. A lot of YouTubers actually say do your first 100 videos first or 100 episodes and don't care about it. Like just do it because it takes practice. And so when you do a podcast, you're forced to find guests and you commit to a certain routine, like it's a fortnightly or monthly or weekly. So it means that you have to turn up. When you're doing videos and making content on your own, you can make your own decision. Oh, I don't want to shoot today. Oh, I'll just, you know, disappear for 2 months and I'll come back next time. No one cares. But when people do podcasts, I guess the audience expects it to be a show.
Well, I think that's about kind of achieving anything in my life anyway. You've got to build in that accountability, right? So let's say if I'm very passionate about endurance sports, if I just said to myself, I'm going to do a marathon, then there's no accountability and I'll potentially just drop out of my training 2 weeks in because nobody will ever know.
Yeah.
But if I publicly say, hey, I've just signed up to an Ironman in December, there's no way I'm not doing that because I've got that level of accountability. People know, you know. So, I think it's the same thing with podcasting.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing about podcasts is it's quite simple. You just have to make sure you find guests. At first you're like, oh my God, what guest can I find? But eventually it's not that hard. Or you ask the guest, who do you know that has a great story that can be on my show? And then you turn up, you ask you might only talk like 5 sentences because you're asking the question. Yeah. The whole time it's the guest that's answering. You're getting free mentoring. You learn so much.
I'm getting free mentoring.
You learn so much, and then it's an opportunity to also connect really deeply. So I've created friendship out of my podcast guests. You know, and if you whatever you do it really intentionally, you get so much value of it. If you do podcasts just so that you could tick the box and then be famous or something. It's so different to, hang on, I'm actually having a conversation and meeting a real person here.
Yeah.
I want to know them, and I'm listening to whatever they're saying. And outside of it, like, I want to, continue to be in touch or add value. And so, yeah. And then, so that's where you get a lot of value from the podcast. So yeah, at the moment, my YouTube channel, Linh Podetti, I interview Christian, I guess, successful people, because I'm quite passionate about faith and success.
Yeah. So it's so cool to hear you kind of speak about, because from the outside in, you are very inspiring, and to see all your podcast show, and you look like, you don't have a worry in the world. Like you said, it's so cool to hear that how shy you were to start with. So one of the biggest things that I get out of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, is in business, I thought I was so defective because I had all these issues and anxieties, and I don't know, and I don't know how to do anything. Like I'm a fraud, I'm a shame. And sitting in a room with a bunch of other entrepreneurs, and you realize everybody has the same insecurities. You're not the only one that feels like they're drowning constantly.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the most value.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've tried to ask some friends who have really successful business, but they still think that, no, I don't think I'm big enough or successful enough to share anything. Who would listen to me? I'm like, oh my God, I want to listen to you.
Everybody.
You don't realize that people are really forgiving, and they even just admire the fact that you put yourself out there and help you, so.
Yeah. So that's what I'm leaning into. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what I want to get out of this podcast. A big part of it was connection, but I want to lean to kind of bringing on inspiring people and to kind of taking the sting out of, because a lot of people, I think, are too scared to kind of take anything on, because they do think that they don't have the ability, and I'm the only one that feels nervous and all of that kind of thing. So to hear about people that are doing awesome things and having that level of vulnerability, I think is really valuable.
You'll win in multiple ways. You'll find connection. You might even develop the skill set of interviewing, hosting, that you're like, this is what I want to do for a living. I literally became that. I was like, oh my God, I love interviewing so much. I want to be the Asian Oprah. That's what I said to myself.
I think you're on your way.
So that's why I became the host of the EO Business Podcast, because it was like, oh, that's what I want to do anyway. It becomes like second nature, but it was not like that before. So you never know who you really are. I literally thought when I was starting out in business, I was actually good in the back end. I was good at team building, doing operations, because that's all I know. But then when I had the opportunity to step in the front and had my team working on the back, I was like, you just take care of it. I'd rather be out and about talking to people and doing front facing. And that's my complete new love. And so whenever I hear entrepreneurs, they go, that's not me, that's not my strength, or I think I'm like, question mark.
I think that's the journey a lot of entrepreneurs go on, and I was definitely similar. And I think I told myself that, I'm not that leader, I'm not that inspiring people. And I didn't do company meetings or anything like that because I was too nervous. But then I think the most rewarding thing I get out of business now is kind of mentoring other people and trying to bring them up. So
I just heard a recent quote from Myron Golden. He's a YouTuber. He said that when we have a physical issue, like for example, our hands are broken or something's happened, we go and fix it. When we think things in our head that's sabotaging ourselves, like, I need more clients, but I'm too shy. I am a shy person. I can't do this. Yet we just accept it. We don't try to fix it. So what he's saying is that, your mental challenge is something that you should also fix, just like if you have a physical challenge. You go and learn something. You go and ask someone about how they did it, and then you try to overcome that.
Yeah, I think it's also important to try to figure out, and you were saying this about podcasting, little steps that you can take, because I think somebody sees something that they're like, there's no way I can achieve that, and they don't even start. But if you can break it down into little steps, I think it makes everything a lot easier.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Linh Podetti.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. That was a blast. We covered a lot of content. Hopefully the audience enjoyed that.
That was awesome. So much fun. Thanks.
Thank you, Luke.
Cheers.
Bye.